Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the mystery of the human personality and the human adventure all through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, your producer and co-host. We have another great guest for you today, USA Today best-selling author, results coach in performance and mindset. Her award-winning books include Grace Yourself, How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want, and Living All In, How to Show Up for the Life You Want. Talking about Chris Janssen. She is a type 4. She's a board-certified coach with a master's in counseling psychology and 20 years experience. She is in recovery. She's an Enneagram 3. She has so much to offer. I know you're going to enjoy this interview with Chris. Hey, that's it for me, Anthony Skinner. And now, without any further ado, here is the host of the show, Ian Cron.
Hey, Typology friends. Man, oh man, I am so stoked. As you just heard from my good friend, Anthony Skinner, we have an amazing guest on today. Enneagram 4, author of the new book, Grace Yourself, How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want. Chris Janssen, welcome to Typology.
Thank you, Ian. I am so excited to be here and talk to my fellow 4.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, and fellow friend in recovery.
I know. I have to say this. When I read your first, I read The Fix. And then I read more of your books because I was blown away. I thought, this guy he's like my brother from another mother. Even your writing, the words you chose to use and writing about new story, old story, is that true? I thought, oh my God, it was kind of Twilight Zone. There were so many similarities. Even, I don't know where I read it, or maybe I saw it on Instagram, your favorite drink is the cortado, and that's my favorite drink. And there was just like one thing after another. I'm going, and then that we're both in AA, and we're both in recovery, and then we're both 4s. I was just been really excited to talk to you.
You know, I'm actually thinking I'm just going to turn over my whole business to you. Now that I know,
I'll take
it's like you could just take the whole business because no one's going to notice any transition. They're going to say, oh yeah, same old thing. All right. So I want to just jump into life, recovery, the Enneagram. You're a 4. Why do you think it is? I tell people all the time that, addictions are equal opportunity enslavers. There's no Enneagram type that has a greater proclivity. In the rooms of recovery, I see all Enneagram types, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I got to say though, 4s, 2s, 7s, 9s, particular types of 9s, what is it about 4s and addiction, do you think? Because so many 4s do kind of lay waste to their lives with drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've thought this to death. I don't have an answer, one. I think in all my thinking, I thought it was very interesting learning that 4s tend to think everything's their fault. Before I was an evolved 4, looking back to high school, and I started drinking alcohol when I was 14, freshman in high school, and then got sober at age 37. And so I am 56 now. So back before I figured some things out, I just thought everything was my fault. And I had to do a lot of work from mentors, my sponsors, to know that wasn't true. And still, it's my go-to. I still want to believe something's my fault. And I know better. I know that that's just a thought. It's not true. I flipped the script. Although it is natural. And I think for me, as a young person, drinking turned that off. I'll say before, this is in the book, so I'll say it, before drinking, it was food addiction. It was numbing with either not eating or eating, and as a teenager. And I was addicted to the numbing, addicted to the escape of those thoughts. Everything's my fault. And that could be part of it for 4s. I know that was with me. And then I also didn't understand, actually your book, The Story of You, helped me with this, that this need, I'm very fussy when I'm not writing. I've always loved writing since I was a small girl. And if I'm not writing, I'm fussy, but I always thought my writing has to have purpose. It has to be a book. It has to be, I used to write song lyrics and I wanted to be a famous songwriter in Nashville, but I have no musical talent whatsoever. I can't even clap on beat in church. So it wasn't going to happen for me, but I had all these like binders full of lyrics and poems and things, just writing because it made me feel okay. And when I would get to this point where I thought, well, this is just useless. This isn't on purpose for anything. And so I would just stop doing it or not start writing again. And then, your work really helped me see I'm just writing to write. It doesn't all have to have a purpose. And so I think when I was young, the alcohol and food helped numb that feeling like everything had to have a reason until I just was driving myself crazy and that would turn it off.
Yeah. It's interesting. I hear that a lot in the rooms of recovery when people share their stories, I also hear the common narrative is all my life I felt different, right? All my life I felt that there was something off about me, something that wasn't interestingly enough, when I first read stuff about fours, I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like every alcoholic I ever met in the sense of this missing piece phenomenon. I have a missing piece that everybody else seems to have. And I'm never going to actually belong in the world unless I find that missing piece. Like that's my story, right? That feeling of like, there's something about me that's not quite normal. That's just off. And that is part of the four's dilemma with identity, right? Like, who am I? And am I okay relative to others? Because we're always comparing ourselves to others, our insides to the other people's outsides, and always coming up short. And I feel like that fueled a lot of my addictive behavior, right? I just want to feel okay in my own skin.
I relate to that for sure. Wanting to fit in. And then once I did, I wanted to be different. So I might go find a different group. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So Anthony and I have a songwriter friend, and she likes to say, you'll know you've hit bottom when you break your own heart. At what point did you break your own heart?
It was after college. I was navigating trying to drink. I knew it wasn't right, but it broke my heart once I had kids. And I, as a progressive condition, it wasn't getting better. I knew deep down that alcohol would kill me if I didn't abstain completely, because I was terrible at moderating it. Even though I'm good at other things, I couldn't get that one thing under control. So it broke my heart. I felt like, it's like you described, I felt like something was missing. I felt like I knew how I wanted to raise my kids. I knew I wanted to write too, like write books. And I knew I wanted to do these things and be this type of mother and wife and person. And I knew I couldn't do it if I kept drinking alcohol. Even if I did pull it off and drink socially, I knew I wouldn't get to where I wanted to be. And that broke my heart.
Yeah, I feel like that this is sort of a place I wish everybody, regardless of whether or not they identify as an addict, could get, because you really can't understand grace until you have hit your version of whatever bottom it is that you have to hit. Now, that may be for alcohol, it may be for drugs, it may be for sex, it might be for porn, it might be for food, it might be for, workaholism, it might be for just realizing your life is unmanageable, or whatever the case may be, right? And you talk about this in the title of the book, right? Grace yourself, right? It's a pithy title, right? But it deserves really unpacking, because I'm so curious as to your thoughts about what grace means on the recovery journey?
I love this question because the reason I titled the book that, to me, I write about this in the book too. To me, grace, I mean God's grace, unmerited favor. There's nothing I can do to earn it. And as a person before recovery, I did not understand how to accept grace because I was very controlling. I thought I had to control everything. And I, as a young person, when life naturally is out of control, you're living in your parents' house, there's a lot you can't control, which, an eating disorder, experimenting with alcohol in high school, that is, in a sense, trying to have some control of things I can't control. But also grace, I couldn't accept it because I thought I had to control everything I earned. I was white knuckling all the time. I thought I was bracing myself all the time. I thought I had to be in charge of, I'll tell you what I'm worth, and this idea that God would give me grace without me controlling if I earned it or not was something I had to learn. And my first sponsor helped me with that when I was 37 and explained that to me. And so I worked at that. I worked at accepting grace. I still do every day. And that's where that title came in. For me, it's laying down control and being able to accept it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just as you were talking, I was thinking about Paul, the theologian Paul Tillich, who talks about that idea that grace is accepting that you've been accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's accepting that you've been accepted. And some people take that out a little further and they say it's accepting you've been accepted despite the fact that you're unacceptable.
Yeah. Yes. That's
which is all rather crazy, right? Now, on the journey to recovery, it's so interesting, right? I'm assuming you've got a sponsor, you're part of a 12-step recovery community. Is that right?
Right.
So with the 12 steps not being a self-help program, which is what I'm always telling people, this is not a self-help program, right? This is a program essentially of grace, right?
Yes.
It's how has that been true for you? And how do you learn to accept rather than earn grace? I mean, how do you describe that to a sponsee?
I describe it the way my first sponsor described it to me. She said, for example, my friend Eileen is sick and I need to bring her soup. And if Eileen were to say to me, oh, no, I couldn't put you out. That's too much trouble. Don't bring me soup. She said, I would be hurt. She's robbing me the opportunity to feel helpful and bring her soup. So I think there is this, the big book talks about pride in reverse. And there is, when we want to be in control of our own worth and when we don't want to accept help, it is pride in reverse. We're saying, it's playing God. I know, I'll tell you, how I'm going to be helped. And to me, that was a big, in that same first year of recovery, I got that concept too, which that changed my life, learning that I was the pride in reverse type, the depressive, wallowing in my sorrows. And I can, I was able to help my kids with that when well, they're older now, they're all in their 20s, but when they were younger and would wallow, and in a sense, they could start to see it as this is selfish and this isn't, if I want to be helpful to other people, this isn't being helpful. This is calling all the attention to myself here.
It's so funny. When you run into other people of faith and you talk about the big book and they're like, what's the big book and why, what are you talking about? How do you explain the big book? Because it's actually super hard to explain it to people and how brilliant it is. So how do you, maybe it's two questions. What's your relationship with the big book of AA? So you have to explain to people what that is, but also how do you twin or feather your faith tradition and your recovery spirituality?
Yeah, I never had a problem doing that, feathering them. I just, and also self-help, in the coaching world, there's a lot of people, because I am a life coach also, there's a lot of people of different faith backgrounds, spiritual, crystals, Jesus, all kinds of things, right? And to me, but we're all sitting there learning the same coaching tools, or in AA through the big book, we're learning these same principles. And to me, I've always been able to see right away, oh, this goes back to what Jesus said, or I have a verse for this. Like I grew up in the church. I grew up studying the Bible, even though don't ask me to quote a Bible verse, because I'm not that, I couldn't.
Could you please quote something from anything from Leviticus? Leviticus, yeah. Please.
Well, yeah. So, but I can go back. I was like, oh yeah, I remember there's a verse for that, and I'll be able to go find it. And, to me, I never had a problem. It all seemed to go hand in hand. The 12 steps, I could find scripture for all of them.
Yeah, well, no question about it. And it's just so funny how people in that world, the world of faith, have so many misunderstandings about recovery, about the big book, about addiction. They have this mindset that, oh, there's those people who are addicts or alcoholics, and then there's the rest of us. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I thought I had problems with denial. That's like crazy. So what do you say to someone, Chris, who says, oh, what a story? And I always pray for people like you who has a problem with addictive behaviors or substances, but I don't really have any of those problems.
Right. Oh gosh. Well, I don't find myself having to say, luckily, because I'm not sure what I would say, but I would say that, try it. Read something like The Fix. Even if you're not a recovery addict or alcoholic, read a book like that, or Steps, or some of these. There's literature out there that is just highlights how wonderful the 12 steps are, but not just for alcoholics and addicts, right? They can be beneficial for just living. And so that was also one of the big things that hit me on the head that first year of recovery was, oh my gosh, I see why all these people are calling themselves grateful alcoholics, which for the listener, that is something we hear in recovery. People say, I'm a grateful alcoholic. And of course, I thought, what the heck does that mean? Why are you grateful about being an alcoholic? But I learned really quickly what that means is because we struggled with this substance, we get to go to these meetings and we get to learn these concepts. And those concepts, like at first they help with the substance, but then they help just with life. And so I feel like grateful because of my alcoholism, I get to this key to all these other things, right? And I would like it to be accessible to everybody because it's wonderful. And so, I would need to find a way to tell that person who thinks that, maybe try it, maybe just read through the 12 steps through the lens of someone who's not alcoholic, read them with an open mind, and maybe read them like, okay, what would you like to be different? If you woke up tomorrow and something was different, your problems were solved, what would that be? And then go read the 12 steps in the lens of that problem. And I bet you it would apply to that. And then that person would see, well, it's for a lot of different people.
Hey, Typology listeners, like you, I strive to know myself better and become a more compassionate and self-aware person, both at home and at work. Now, by far, the Enneagram is the best tool I have found for helping me to realize that in my life. And while taking an Enneagram test to help figure out your type is a great starting point, many tests out there provide content that is difficult to digest on your own, not to mention the fact that many tests are poorly constructed. That's why I've worked hard for the past few years to create a quick and research-backed assessment that provides straightforward insights specific for your type, subtype, and wing, while also being easy to understand. Simply put, my new Typology Institute Enneagram assessment offers incredibly useful information that you can use immediately to incorporate the genius of the Enneagram into every area of your life. And as a Typology listener, you can take 10% off your assessment when you enter the discount code Typology Podcast on the checkout page. Just visit typologyinstitute.com/assessments to get your results today. So what happens in the rooms of recovery that people who don't identify as addicts or attend recovery meetings, like what's going on in those rooms that you wish people who didn't regularly attend them, that you wish they could have?
Wish they could have? Well, I think the love and acceptance. I do think some people think there's a stigma and that in meetings there may be some sense of shame or especially if you need to start over with a new day one, right? Maybe you have to start over recovery and that there would be shame. And I think people don't understand that's not true. Everybody is very filled with grace and loving and accepting and wants to help, and that we do that through sharing stories. We're also not in there giving advice or telling each other what to do. We're just sharing our stories. And in that sense, we're helping each other by just sharing our own experience.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I had a relapse a couple of years ago, and which in some ways was the story behind the fix, right? Mm-hmm. And I was on an interview the other day. Anthony, you'll love what happened. I was in a mood. That's all I can tell you. But I had done so many interviews and I was like so fed up because, there are some Christians in the world. I'm just going to be very blunt here. Okay. And they start off with this. Oh my gosh. Well, you were a well-known author and a Christian and a priest and a therapist. And here you had this relapse and I mean, how did you feel? And I actually stopped him and I said, okay, let me just tell you the question I think you're trying to ask me. Mm. He goes, oh yeah, please. I said, what you're trying to ask me is, aren't you ashamed of yourself?
How did they respond?
Oh, dude, to his credit, he looked shocked because I was kind of busting out of I was introducing breaking the third wall on a stage. Yeah, you know what I mean? And he's like, I guess that is what I'm asking. And I said, okay, so what you're asking me is, aren't I ashamed of myself? And so I said to him, would you like me to be? And he's like, okay, no. I'm like, so maybe you should ask me a different question.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I'm like,
yes.
They left that in. That's good.
Well, I know. I was going to ask, did they leave it in?
I know. I didn't listen back to the interview. But here's the thing. I'm like, why is it? And I actually said this to him later in the program. I said, how come I can go into the basement of a church, into a room of people, most of whom do not identify as Christians, right, and I can tell them about how I blew my life up, and they clap their hands and say, we love you, keep coming back. But if I go upstairs and I share the same story, people go, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Can I just ask, what the hell is wrong with us?
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
Also Christians, Jesus wouldn't do that. Jesus would be in the basement, right?
For sure.
This is my point.
He was
exactly.
in the basement, right?
Yeah. So I do say that, some people, I'm fortunate. I don't know if it's because I live in California. I don't know. I am part of I've been able to be part of healthy churches that don't have shame. Maybe when I was younger, there was some shame being thrown around. Maybe that's how I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Anyway, but I do say, Christians, if you're looking at just Christians, please don't do that, because a lot of us are giving it a bad name, right? Look at Jesus, and that's who's showing us grace and the unmerited favor and loving us no matter what, which is what we need to get better at anything, to move forward. I don't think we're broken, and I don't think we need fixing. I just think we're all moving forward, though, right? We don't need to get clean to take a bath. We can come in right where we're at, and Jesus, or our higher power, is full of grace. And that's what the people in the rooms of these recovery meetings show, to me at least.
Yeah.
All over the world, I've been to meetings and they do.
Yeah, me too. And I just, the irony is that on numerous podcasts that I did over the last year, in more than 5 or 10 instances, the tenor of the beginning of the interview was, oh my gosh. And I literally, in a couple of interviews, I go, are you reading the same Bible I'm reading? I'm just curious. Like, have you not heard that human beings struggle and that we go on misadventures, and we go searching for love and healing in the wrong places, not once, serially we do it, right? And I'm just wondering why you're acting so surprised. Oh man, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I'm just gonna be honest, because I don't have I'm a priest, but I don't have a parish that I'm in charge of, right?
Right.
But sometimes I'm like, I give up. I'm just gonna go hang out with people in 12-step rooms. I don't, and I know a lot of people who have felt that way. They find the rooms of recovery, and they're like, this is what I was always looking for, was a safe place and a way to live out my faith. And this feels better. And some days, on my worst days, I do that. And the only reason I haven't done it, Anthony, I will tell you this, is because, number one, at AA meetings or NA meetings, whichever meeting anyone chooses to go to, there's no Eucharist. And I need that, right? Desperately. I need that desperately. That experience of oneness with God celebrated with a community. Like, if we did the Eucharist at an AA meeting, I would be like, we are finished. I am done, man. I mean, and here's another crazy thing I need. I need to say the confession and have someone tell me, give me what's called the assurance of pardon. Every week I need someone to say to me, in my tradition, it's Almighty God, forgive you, have mercy on you, forgive you all your sins through our Lord Jesus Christ, and by the power of the Holy Spirit, keep you in eternal life. So I need to hear those words all the time. You're forgiven, and I need to hear the body of Christ, the bread of heaven, while someone puts a piece of bread in my hand. That's the only reason I sometimes haven't given up on church and just gone to 12-step meetings.
Well, that's a good reason.
I guess they're two pretty big reasons, I guess. But that's what keeps me in there. Or, Chris, maybe you should come to Nashville and we can just start a 12-step meeting. We won't call it AA. We'll just have one that includes the Eucharist once a week.
I'll go. That would be great. Yeah.
Just started at my house. Just come on over and we'll have a meeting followed by Eucharist. I think that would probably be who are pretty good.
Right.
So, in your own journey of healing, where are you right now? Like, what are you working on?
You mean healing wise or work wise?
Like therapy, healing, spirituality. What are you personally working on right now?
Okay, let me tell you. I would love to be better at accepting, negative criticism. I'll call it criticism. I don't have a large platform as an author. I don't know if I want one. I've kind of been like, they say, oh, do all this on your socials, and there's kind of a formula that we do. And I'm afraid of like negativity, like somebody criticizing me in reviews. And I know that's a big, and I read about how other people do it. And I just think, well, I guess I'm I'm meant to just be in the background and write these books because it makes me happy. And, but I don't, like, I've even said this out my mouth before. I want to write, but I don't want anyone really reading or reviewing the books.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right.
That's great.
All right. So Chris, here's the thing.
Help me, please.
Okay. Well, no, but I think I can, because just by resonating with you, right? Mm-hmm. Anthony, how many times? See, but it's a little different for me. It's not that, I don't want, like, I actually really want people to read my book. Mm-hmm. I am very thin-skinned. I take criticism very much to heart. It is very hard for me. Now, I've gotten better at it over the years, but still, I mean, one of the reasons I'm not a pastor of a church anymore is because it hurts too much.
Yes.
It just hurts too much.
Lots of suggestions and comments about how you're doing things, right?
And it's never enough. And you know, if you get 50 compliments, of course you obsess about the one critique, you know, from the bitty old lady who only has critiques, you know. And so I totally get that. I think the other thing about the social media thing and being an author that is hard for me as a 4, I'm private. And so I don't actually want people to have a window into my life.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. So I'm not out there. I'm not like a 3 on the Enneagram that may be out there. Like, I have a friend of mine who's a 3, and they're like, "Oh, just say stuff that actually gets people going crazy." And I'm like, "What?" Yeah, like, make them get mad at you. It's more engagement, and more engagement means the algorithm will keep driving people. And I'm like, I can't sleep when that happens.
Right.
Like, and you know, maybe I'm kind of like a wuss, but I can't sleep when that happens. So I understand that. And also I just think 4s, you're right. That is something to work on, because we take criticism to heart. You know, 2s do as well, but I think kind of for different reasons. But 4s, man, it's almost like if someone gets mad at us or disappointed in us, that it only confirms what we've always known, which is there's something wrong with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I, again, back to my first year of recovery, my sponsor asked me, "How many times have you lied or avoided the truth to avoid your, like, a family member's disappointment?" I thought, oh my gosh, my whole life. That's where I learned to lie, was to and then that goes right into alcoholism, right? Because I'm sneaking alcohol now, and I'm lying. It was with food too, and so that was very eye-opening for me. I want to be truthful. I don't want to be someone I'm not to avoid criticism or avoid disappointment. I wish I could go to the store and buy thicker skin.
That's great.
Like a coat.
When you find it, would you call me?
Yes, I'll send you the link.
Better yet, I'm a small. Could you just send one to me and I'll pay you back?
Yes.
I mean, it's the truth. It's like, and also what you were describing earlier is the Enneagram 4's defense mechanism, which is introjection. So you walk into a room and the automatic assumption is if something is off, it's your fault.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that belief for years. Anthony's a 4. Did you have that feeling, Anthony?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I wish I could be more 8-ish. I have friends of mine who are 8, and it's always somebody else's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I don't get that.
It's like, yeah.
Me neither. I wish I could get that.
Yeah. And they'll tell you, if you have an 8 in your life, they'll tell you to be more like that. Just let it roll off. Don't just be more like that.
I know.
What?
And I'm like, would that I could.
Yeah.
Would that I could.
Well,
that
this is where the pride in reverse helped me, because thinking everything is my fault now is, once I learned to see that's pretty selfish, because I don't have that much control to go manipulate a situation. So how is it all my fault. Let's give someone else some of the credit.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, yeah. That's so funny. I've told this on the show before, but my sponsor is a very, very funny guy. And I used to say to him stuff like, "Oh, I suck. It's all my fault." And he goes, "Don't flatter yourself."
Yes, exactly. Yes, and thinking that our problem is significant, right? And so I say, like I say it in the books, it's like identify with something. Like I want to identify with this knowledge of that I'm a 4 and what that is. I don't want to make it my identity.
Right.
So I want to identify with a label, but not make it my identity.
It makes sense on how when we go to 2 in stress, right? It's like to fix those things because we do feel like it's all our fault. And then what the deadly sin of the 2 is pride. It's like, that's kind of what I hear you saying. I mean, I used to do that all the time, think it was my fault, and then go to try to fix the whole thing, right?
Yeah, no question. Now, stillness is a big thing for you, right? Like, sort of like when you got sober, learning to be still was something that was important, right? Mm-hmm. That's funny because as a 4, being alone and being in reflection was actually something very normal for me. Like, it wasn't, stillness was not something I wrestled with. Tell me more about that in your journey.
No, I don't wrestle with being alone. I think the part that was when I got in recovery, I thought I was bored. And then I learned that was serenity.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Oh my gosh. I called my sponsor years ago and I said, "Oh, I don't know, man. Since I got back from treatment, I don't know. Everything just feels so flat." Yeah. And I don't know. It's just I don't have all these highs and that I used to have and, blah, blah, blah. And he's listening to me and he's like, he's a very funny guy from the South, and he's like, "Dude, that's called content."
That is so funny.
Exactly.
No drama.
Yeah. So I don't have trouble being still. I love being alone. I think when I was younger, I used to be alone too much, like isolate and so my husband just retired. So he's around a lot more. And so we've had some fun conversations about like, like what are the hours we get to be alone? And then when do we get back together at 5:00 in the evening, which he is like, it was just funny. It's all been great. But yeah, no, I like being alone. I think this idea of meditation, sometimes if I meditate in the way some other people meditate, like being still and maybe closing their eyes, I will fall asleep. So I do like to run I like a routine and I like to run every morning. And on the run is when I meditate. Like I'll go on my run without earphones and I'll pray, but I'll listen. I'll really like hear what I need to hear for the day. And that's, I guess it's, there's physicality to that meditation for me. So I'm not really still because I'm running, but my mind is still when I'm doing that. So
you're kind of not new to the Enneagram, but kind of throwing yourself into it maybe in the last month or so. Mm-hmm. And so this question might be hard to answer, but how do you see the Enneagram as being a useful tool for people in sobriety?
The number one thing that comes to mind is that thing back with labels, not thinking we're special. I think a problem before we get to recovery, there's a problem when people don't want to open up or share their story or be humble because we think our problem is significant and we're the only one on the face of the earth that has this exact problem. And then that's what's so great about recovery groups is you go and find out there's actually thousands and millions of people that share your problem. And so I think the Enneagram can help us all know we're not the only people that think or behave this way. Like in my case, like a 4. Specifically, I really thought there was a lot wrong with me, that I would always think something was my fault. And then you try to diagnose and trace it back to childhood and all these things, and that becomes exhausting. But it's just the way we're wired, and a lot of other people are wired that way. So I think taking the significance off of whatever our number is, and knowing we're just like a lot of different people, just like how recovery works and recovery support group works. I think that's how it could be helpful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't done this with my sponsees yet, but some of them know that I write about the Enneagram and stuff like that. I don't make it like part of the standard curriculum of what I do with sponsees, but I have seen. I've taught the Enneagram in treatment centers numerous times, because I think it's just amazing. Like, for example, if you knew early on in your recovery journey that you had this suspicion that there was something missing in your essential makeup that everybody else had, but you lacked, that rendered you unworthy of love and relationship, and that in order to compensate for it, you sought to be special and unique and different than other people. I mean, that's a lot of self-knowledge that's super helpful early in recovery. Like, that explains a lot.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Or that, if you're a 1 on the Enneagram who has a need to be good, to perfect yourself, others, and the world, and you realize, oh yeah, all my life, I've just hated myself for not being perfect. And drinking made it easier.
Yeah.
On and on and on. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I keep thinking about how to more formally use the Enneagram as a tool for anybody in recovery. It's like, there's some information in here about yourself that would really help you on the journey toward healing.
Well, it would seem to me that all the, as you call them, passions, like the passion of every number would be a reason to drink or
envy.
Do drugs.
Envy.
Yeah. That's the 4s. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever wrestle with envy?
Yes. And I loved how you explained that we envy the character traits of somebody else, because I've said, I don't envy. I don't remember. I'm not jealous of people. Like, I don't ever want what people have, but you here's an example. I just read Elton John's biography, and he talks about Bernie Taupin, and he wrote the lyrics, and then he would just take just write the lyrics like what I did as a kid, and would just hand the lyrics to Elton freaking John, and then Elton John would make magic out of it. And I was reading this, like, feeling really envious of Bernie Taupin, that he could write these lyrics and had this relationship with this mastermind that he could, right? That's kind of weird for a woman like me to be envious of someone like that. Someone might think I'm envious of, a supermodel or something. That's like the typical, like, women might be jealous of material things, but I really resonate with being envious of people's character traits or their abilities, right? Or
their childhoods, their nicer childhoods, or the fact that they're not an alcoholic or a drug addict, or the fact, I have noted that the older I get, I don't think I'm more envious. It's just I'm so much more aware of it.
Aware of it, yes.
That I'm like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm always comparing. Now, the good news is, as I've gotten older, I'm kinder, I'm more aware. The problems don't necessarily go away, but I regard them differently. And that makes it all easier, which is great. I wouldn't want to be any younger than I am anymore.
No, gosh,
although
I wouldn't want to go back.
I wouldn't mind being 35 with what I know.
That would be so fun. Maybe for a day. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
Oh, to be 35 and to know what I know at 65? Yeah, that'd be
Ain't gonna happen.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what are you going to do? Well, anyway, hey, Chris Janssen, author of Grace Yourself, How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want. Thanks for being on with us. What a joy.
This was so fun for me. Thank you. Nice to meet you too, Anthony.
You too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on.
This was great.
Chris, tell people where they can find out more about you.
ChrisJanssenCoaching.com, and the book is available where books are sold.
Yay. Okay, everybody, go get yourself a copy of Grace Yourself. And everybody, listen up. May you have love. May you have joy. May you have peace. May you have healing. May you have rest. Until next time.